Arthur Ransome had the pick of Britain's rivers to choose from when he wrote Rod and Line. He could as well have called on his memories as a foreign correspondent. He'd fished the rivers flowing into the Baltic, the Caspian, and the China seas. But the very pick, he might have argued, was here, on the waters running from above Peebles down to Berwick, the River Tweed, renowned amongst fishermen. He might indeed have come here on a late autumn day such as this to do battle with the noble salmon. And he might, like me, have been torn between excited thoughts of such a prize and a sudden awareness of his own total inadequacy. At just such a moment as this, like me, he might have thought nostalgically of the more modest aspirations that he recalled in his essay, Fishing in Lilliput. Not many of us can get fishing on such rivers as the Test and the Itchen, where a pounder is a little fish. Nor can many of us fish regularly such rivers as the Eden, Colne, the Derbyshire Wye. We may get a day or two on such rivers in a season, but for the most part, we have to make do with fishing less obviously good. Happily, however, the pleasure of fishing is not strictly measurable in weight of fish or in its annual cost. Some of the most delightful days are to be had on waters where anyone may fish who has a license, closes gates, recognizes that hedges are meant as barriers and not as sporting obstacles to be broken through, and never walks in mowing grass. These waters are of two kinds, those without any fish in them, and those with many fish, but small. These last, to those who know them, give some of the pleasantest fishing in the country. Sometimes, indeed, when the big rivers are out of order, many a man with the right to fish a nobler water has found himself well advised to leave that water and to go to fish in Lilliput. Small boys have an advantage in this country. Parts of the river are defended by bush and bramble which deter small boys, much less than Gullivers. Other parts are so open that Man Mountain, who would catch a fish there, must be able to hide behind a molehill or a thistle. Until he knows these regions of Lilliput, Gulliver is overconscious of indignity in creeping so low to catch such a small fish. For in the rivers of Lilliput, the trout run small, from 6 to 16 to the pound, some say 32. Though you will always meet a man who knew a man who hooked and lost a great fish that was 6 ounces if it was a dram. In Lilliput, men who jeer at an 8-inch limit are inclined to complain of a 6-inch limit as too big. Returning from Lilliput to the normal-sized world, men find themselves excusing the little fish by saying that they eat very sweet. Well, so they do. But to say so is like finding that the best that can be said of a man is that he made a beautiful corpse. Got him. A little back up. The little fish of Lilliput deserve a handsomer obituary than that. They are great fighters for their inches, and when they rise heartily. Indeed, they rise with such decision and promptitude that they ought to be both wealthy and wise. Very wise they are not. Wealthy? They are not in a rich country, but in one where to keep a full stomach is riches. And they, by August, are plump as little aldermen, and a great deal livelier. The secret of getting the best out of fishing in Lilliput is to pretend that you are fishing in Brobdingnag. Attack a rising 3-ounce fish as if you were trying to get a rise out of a 3-pounder. It is as difficult, and therefore as interesting, to float your dry fly past that diminutive nose as it is to offer it to a larger fish.
When in doubt, a black gnat. Yeah. You'll probably get more fish with your 3 wet flies. But you'll get more satisfaction with your single dry one. 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's because the dry fly, even when taken by a Lilliput hopper-my-thumb, requires a deliberation in the strike which gives a rise and importance far greater than can ever be attributed to the sudden pluck and pull that make up the simultaneous rise and strike proper to the wet fly. Use a rod that will cast a short line, and use the finest tackle you can get. If you find you're getting too many fish, raise your size limit by 1/4 inches. A careful adjustment of mind and tackle alike will give you days of as good fishing in Lilliput as ever you could get among the Brobdingnagian monsters. Watch the fly on the water as if you were fishing for the epicure of the chalk streams. If the fish in Lilliput have a vice, which I do not like to admit, it is that on some days they are too willing to take any fly you offer them. But even in Lilliput, it will be found on these days there is one fly they will more willingly take than any other. If you make your own flies, you can be surer of appreciation in Lilliput than elsewhere. But here and there, you will come across a little trout who rejects your fly and yet takes a natural the moment it has passed him. Such a trout is very valuable, no matter what his size.
Ah. I believe he had it.
And when you outwit him by giving him just the fly he is preferring, he will set you up in your own mind for half a day.
Oh, God! Hell of a big grayling there. I missed him. Ah! Hell of a fish. Got him. Yeah. Wait, come out of it. Come out of it. Come out of that. Come out of that. Come out of that bush. No, you don't. No, you don't go downstream. No, you don't. Or into the bush. No, you don't. It was a big grayling. Here and there a lusty trout. And here and there a grayling. Hup. Well, the one that got away. The one that got away.
Oh dear, a very large grayling in Lilliput. But to return to Arthur Ransome and his story of small things. And my favorite river in Lilliput? Well, it's the...
Who gives away such secrets?
It turns almost into a river of Brobdingnag before it reaches the sea, but that's many miles away. It is 3 rivers in one, providing several sorts of fishing. One length of it, where the quarter-pounder veterans lie, is in a deep gully overhung with trees, almost dark, even in high summer at midday, where, in the tunnel of green leaves, are short, deep pools. You must wade if you're to go to the water at all, and stoop if you're to get along under the bows. There's no room for a 9-foot rod.
Quite difficult to see a fly in this light. It's so dark.
Another length is fast, though much broken with Lilliput boulders. It invites the wet fly. A greedy friend of mine took over a dozen trouts from this length one day, using 3 wet flies. And even here, a burly, bushy little dry fly is a pleasant sight, dancing down the rapids, and does, I think, take a slightly bigger fish. The 3rd length is the best. Its water is slow. Its pools are very long, with a slowly smoothing surface below the runs. It is, in fact, a perfect length for dry fly fishing.
Ho, ho! Ooh, actually got a fish.
The man who has fished up that short length and reached the top of it with, say, 6 trout, and not lost his temper with the foolish grayling that insisted on taking his fly and wasting his time, has done something to be proud of.
Come on.
And since the fish are Lilliput fish, the fisherman is not punished for his success by a heavy weight as he walks back along the river with the dusk rolling mistily down the hills and the first owls calling. In Lilliput, the tranquil end to a perfect day's fishing is never spoiled by the strap of a heavy bag insistently cutting the shoulder.